There comes a moment when everything that once confused you suddenly makes sense. The year 2026 carries that kind of energy, a quiet but powerful awakening. It's not about dramatic endings or sudden miracles, but about clarity. You start to see people for who they truly are, not who you wish they would be. You begin to notice how the narcissist's charm was never kindness, how their compliments were always calculated, how their apologies were simply another doorway back into your energy. For years, they studied your empathy like a map, learning what makes you care, what makes you forgive, and what makes you stay. They built their control not through power, but through your compassion. And the hardest part to accept is that you allowed it, not because you were weak, but because your heart was pure. You believed love could fix what only truth could reveal. But 2026 isn't the year of repeating cycles. It's the year of recognition. This is a spiritual wake-up call that shakes your soul awake and whispers, "No more." You start to look back on every conversation, every manipulation, and you realize how perfectly they played the role of victim while making you the villain. You see how every time you try to explain your pain, they twisted it into an attack on them. Every time you tried to bring peace, they created chaos just to stay in control. And finally, you stop asking, "Why did they do this to me?" and start asking, "Why did I keep giving them access to my light?" This realization doesn't come with anger. It comes with power, the kind of power that comes from awareness. You begin to understand that empathy without boundaries is not love. It's self-abandonment. And that's exactly what narcissists thrive on, your willingness to put their comfort above your peace. But this year, your spirit refuses to be used as their playground. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending your worth. You stop feeling guilty for walking away. The energy that once fueled their control now begins to fuel your healing. And as this shift happens, you'll notice something almost supernatural. They lose their ability to affect you. Their words won't sting like before. Their silence won't shake you. Their presence won't confuse you. Because once your spirit awakens, their manipulation no longer has a place to hide. It's like light entering a room that's been dark for years. Nothing looks the same again. That's what 2026 brings. Divine clarity, quiet strength, and the courage to reclaim what was always yours, your peace, your purpose, your spiritual authority. The wake-up call isn't just about seeing them differently. It's about seeing yourself clearly for the first time. You were never broken. You were just learning how powerful your light truly is. The silent war is a kind of battle most people never see, but almost everyone feels. It doesn't leave bruises on your skin, but it leaves scars on your heart. Narcissists don't come at you with fists or obvious weapons. They come with smiles, soft words, and subtle games designed to make you doubt yourself. They learn your rhythms, your weaknesses, your hopes, and your fears. They twist your kindness into a trap, turning your compassion into a chain. Slowly, they make you question not only your worth, but your faith. You start to wonder if maybe you're the problem, if maybe your love isn't enough, if maybe God has turned his back on you. This is how they fight, not by attacking your body, but by draining your spirit until you don't recognize yourself anymore. Yet, even in that quiet battlefield, something else is happening. With every moment you've been confused, you've also been learning. With every tear you've cried, you've been building strength. With every lie they've told, you've been growing in discernment. The silent war they wage against you has been training your soul, not destroying it. Each subtle insult, each manipulation, each gaslighting episode became a lesson written on your spirit. Painful, yes, but powerful. What they meant for harm has been shaping your awareness. What they hoped would break you has been teaching you to see behind masks. And now, standing in 2026, you are no longer the same person who walked blindly into their web. You're wiser. You're steadier. You're not reacting the way you used to. Their confusion tactics don't land the same anymore, because you've stopped relying on their version of truth. You're tuned into something higher, something steady, something divine. The silent war they fought against you has actually awakened a warrior in you. Not the loud kind, but the calm, grounded kind who fights with clarity and refuses to be manipulated again. This is the beauty of the silent war. It teaches you to listen differently. It teaches you to trust your instincts over their words, to recognize energy over appearances, to guard your peace like it's a holy space. And when you finally see it for what it is, the war loses its power. The narcissist's greatest weapon, confusion, becomes their greatest weakness because you're no longer playing their game. Every silent battle you've endured has been preparation for this moment. The awakening where you realize you've already won simply by surviving and refusing to surrender your light. The year of exposure is not loud or chaotic. It's quiet, clear, and undeniable. In 2026, it will feel as if the lights have been switched on in a room you've been walking through in the dark for years. Faces you once trusted will look different. Words that once soothed you will sound hollow. Actions you once excused will now show their true intent. This is the year when masks fall, not because you go searching for the truth, but because truth itself comes searching for you. Hidden motives, fake love, and secret envy that once hid behind smiles and polite gestures will start to reveal themselves in ways you can't ignore. Conversations will slip, intentions will surface, and the very energy around certain people will expose what words can no longer cover. In this season, God is not just opening your eyes. He's giving you discernment. It's more than seeing facts. It's sensing spirit. You'll feel when someone's warmth isn't real. You'll sense when a compliment carries a dagger behind it. You'll know, without needing evidence, who truly stands with you and who only stands close enough to benefit from your light. The manipulator's greatest advantage, their ability to charm, begins to fade when truth enters the room. Their smile won't disarm you anymore. Their stories won't confuse you, and their excuses won't hold weight. What once blinded you will now appear as clear as day, not because they changed, but because you did. And with that clarity comes freedom. Freedom to walk away without explaining. Freedom to say no without guilt. Freedom to stop questioning your instincts and start trusting them. The year of exposure isn't about embarrassing your enemies or shaming the people who hurt you. It's about liberation. It's about stepping out of illusions you didn't even know you were living under. It's about finally seeing who you are when you're not trapped in someone else's story. This exposure will also reveal something even deeper, your own strength. You'll look back at the situations you survived and realize you weren't naive. You were compassionate. You weren't weak. You were learning. And now, every lesson, every tear, every sleepless night becomes a lens through which you see the truth without bitterness. That's the real power this year. Not only does God reveal others to you, He reveals you to yourself. The light that enters a room doesn't just expose their intentions. It also illuminates your resilience, your wisdom, and your spiritual authority. This is a year of unmasking, and it will not harm you. It will set you free. Your empathy has always been your greatest strength, though the world, and especially the narcissist, tried to convince you otherwise. They told you that you cared too much, that you forgave too easily, that you felt too deeply. But the truth is, you were never too sensitive. You were divinely designed to feel. Your heart was crafted to sense what eyes can't see and ears can't hear. That gift, the ability to read energy, to feel pain that isn't yours, to comfort others without words, is sacred. It's the language of the soul. And while narcissists mocked it, twisted it, and used it to their advantage, they could never possess it themselves. They lack empathy, which is why they chase it. They see in you what they can never create within themselves: genuine love, divine compassion, and the power to heal. For years, they fed off your kindness, manipulating it into guilt, turning your compassion into a tool for their control. Every time you tried to help, they took more. Every time you tried to understand them, They twisted your understanding into self-blame. But in 2026, that changes. This is the year your empathy becomes your weapon, not an aggression, but an awareness. Because when you finally understand how your heart works, no one can use it against you. You start to see that feeling deeply doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. You notice the energy behind words. You sense lies before they're spoken. You read motives without confrontation. Your heart, once open to manipulation, becomes a radar for truth. The same compassion they tried to use against you now acts as your shield. You no longer pour love into empty vessels, hoping they'll reflect it back. Instead, you learn to give wisely, to protect your energy like it's gold. You start to choose peace over pleasing, boundaries over begging, silence over explaining. And as you do, your empathy transforms from something they drain into something that protects you. It shields you from chaos, confusion, and deceit. You begin to attract people who match your energy instead of those who steal it. This is spiritual maturity. When your empathy no longer becomes a weakness they exploit, but a force that exposes their intent. Narcissists can't survive in the presence of someone who feels truth at a soul level. They become uncomfortable, anxious, and distant because your light unmasks their darkness without you saying a word. That's your power now. Quiet, discerning, and unstoppable. In 2026, your empathy is no longer an open wound. It's divine armor. It doesn't just protect you. It guides you, aligns you, and ensures that from this point forward, your heart only beats in spaces that honor it. Energy exchange is one of the most overlooked truths about human connection, yet it shapes everything about your spiritual life. Every word spoken, every glance shared, every touch, every thought, it's all currency. We don't just give time or attention. We give pieces of our spirit. When you step into a room, your energy either uplifts or absorbs. Narcissists know this, even if they can't name it. They survive on taking, on drawing out your warmth, your focus, your faith. They turn every conversation into a transaction, and every moment into an extraction. Their chaos isn't random. It's designed to keep you pouring your light into their darkness until you feel empty. But chosen ones restore. Your very presence heals. People breathe easier when you walk in. They confide in you, lean on you, and leave feeling lighter. That's not an accident. It's your calling. Yet, without boundaries, even a calling can become a cage. The more you give without discernment, the more drained you become. And the more drained you are, the easier it is for manipulative people to slip in and siphon what's left. This is why 2026 is not just another year. It's a turning point in how you handle your spiritual currency. This year, you begin to see your energy for what it really is: sacred. You stop apologizing for needing space. You stop explaining why you're no longer answering every message, attending every event, or giving every second chance. You begin to recognize that not everyone who reaches for you deserves your hand. Protecting your frequency doesn't mean you're selfish. It means you're wise. It means you finally understand that every interaction is either a deposit or withdrawal, and you can no longer afford to let people who live in darkness drain what God gave you to shine. And as you shift, your life begins to change. You attract people who give as much as they take. You notice relationships becoming balanced, conversations feeling lighter, and your inner peace deepening. Narcissists lose their grip because you're no longer fueling them. They can't hook into your guilt, your attention, or your time because you've closed the pipeline. You're not just withdrawing from toxic exchanges. You're investing your energy where it multiplies. In 2026, this becomes your new spiritual economy. Every moment you spend, every word you speak, every space you enter becomes intentional. You learn to treat your frequency like a temple, a treasure, a flame. And because of that, your light grows stronger, brighter, and untouchable. The darkness that once fed on you can no longer reach you because your energy isn't just yours anymore. It's protected, elevated, and sacred. God's hidden training is the part of your story no one else sees. The invisible classroom where your spirit has been forged. All those sleepless nights where you stare at the ceiling wondering why this was happening to you. All those silent tears you wiped away so no one would notice. All those betrayals that left you questioning your own worth. None of it was wasted. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every unanswered prayer was a lesson disguised as pain. While you thought you were breaking down, God was building you up. While you thought you were being punished, you were actually being prepared. This is what most people never understand about the chosen ones. Their greatest strength doesn't come from comfort. It comes from surviving what others couldn't. Every manipulation you endured taught you discernment. Every rejection taught you self-respect. Every time you felt abandoned, you learned how to stand alone without losing your faith. This wasn't cruelty. It was training. Quiet, deliberate, divine training. God was building spiritual muscle in you. Patience, wisdom, resilience, and the ability to recognize wolves even when they're dressed as sheep. That's why 2026 is not your breakdown year. It's not another cycle of crying and crawling out of pits someone else pushed you into. This is your graduation from emotional slavery. You're stepping into a season where the tests are over and the lessons are integrated. You no longer have to keep proving your worth to people who only want to drain you. You no longer have to beg for clarity. You are clarity. You no longer have to wonder why they treated you that way. You already understand. And with this graduation comes a new kind of authority. Not the loud, performative authority of someone trying to prove they're strong, but the quiet, steady authority of someone who knows they've been through fire and come out gold. You don't have to shout to be heard anymore. You don't have to explain to be believed. You simply walk in your truth, and the room shifts. People who once manipulated you will find no entrance. Situations that once triggered you will no longer move you. This is the hidden beauty of God's training. It strips you of illusions but leaves you with power. Power that isn't rooted in revenge, but in revelation. Power that doesn't come from controlling others, but from mastering yourself. In 2026, you're not stepping into a fight. You're stepping into freedom. Everything that tried to break you is actually teaching you how unbreakable you are. Everything that tried to silence you is actually preparing you to speak with weight. The training is over. The lesson is learned. The strength is yours now. And nothing, especially not a narcissist manipulation, can take it from you. There's a moment in every survivor's journey when they step back from the noise and finally see the pattern. For years, you may have felt like you were walking through a hall of mirrors, each reflection distorted, each image of yourself bent and twisted until you no longer knew who you were. Narcissists are masters at building these mirrors. They hold them up to you not to show your true self, but to reflect back a version of you that fits their narrative. When you were kind, they called you weak. When you forgave, they called you desperate. When you set boundaries, they called you selfish. This is how they trap you, not with force, but with reflection. They want you to see yourself only through their eyes because as long as you're looking at their mirror, you're not looking at the truth. But something extraordinary happens when you stop chasing validation. The narcissist's mirror cracks. Their illusion of power begins to crumble because their control was never about who they were. It was always about who they convinced you to believe you were. As long as you sought their approval, they held the paintbrush to your self-image. They became the artist, and you became the canvas. Every compliment, every silent treatment, every subtle dig was another brushstroke designed to shape how you saw yourself. But the day you put down the need for their approval, the day you stop waiting for their praise or fearing their disapproval, is the day you take back the paintbrush. This year, 2026, is that day stretched across an entire season of your life. It's not just a moment. It's a shift, It's a year you stop measuring your worth by their reactions. You begin to notice how much energy you've spent trying to explain, trying to prove, trying to win them over. And you realize it was never about you not being enough. It was about them needing you to stay unsure so they could stay in control. When you remove your need for their validation, the game ends. Their words lose weight. Their silence stops feeling like punishment. Their approval no longer feels like oxygen because you've learned to breathe without it. This is a mirror of truth. When you step back, it shatters. What was once a weapon becomes a window. You start to see clearly, not just them, but yourself. You see how strong you've been, how much you've endured, and how your worth was never tied to their recognition. You see how the love you poured out wasn't a flaw, but a reflection of your depth. You begin to understand that everything they told you about yourself was never reflection. It was a projection. Their accusations of selfishness were about their own greed. Their accusations of instability were about their own chaos. Their accusations of you being too much were about their inability to meet you where you stood. And with this clarity comes silence. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of power. In 2026, your silence speaks louder than their manipulation. You stop explaining your decisions. Stop defending your boundaries. Stop rehearsing speeches in your head to justify why you're walking away. You simply walk. You simply choose. You simply act. And that silence becomes the loudest thing in the room. It unnerves the narcissist because they no longer have hooks to pull you back. They can't bait you into arguments. They can't guilt you into staying. They can't dangle approval like a carrot because you're not hungry for it anymore. You're full of truth, full of peace, full of the self-worth that no longer needs their stamp. This shift is more than emotional. It's spiritual. The narcissist mirror has always been about more than just control. It's been about dimming your spiritual light. They needed you to doubt yourself so you wouldn't step into your purpose. They needed you to question your worth so you'd keep shrinking to fit their narrative. But when you stop seeking their validation, your light begins to return. Your energy shifts. You carry yourself differently. You speak differently. Even your silence carries weight. People begin to notice. Some draw closer because they're aligned with your growth. Others pull away because they can no longer manipulate what they cannot reach. And here's the most powerful part. The mirror doesn't just reveal them. It reveals you. You see how patient you've been, how compassionate, how resilient. You see how your ability to endure wasn't weakness. It was training. You see how every false reflection they held up to you was an opportunity to learn the contours of your own soul. And now, with the mirror cracked, you stand face to face with your true self. Not the self they told you you were, but the self you've always been. This is where the healing deepens. Because once you see yourself clearly, you no longer settle for distorted reflections. You no longer explain your value to people who refuse to see it. You no longer shrink to fit spaces that weren't built to hold you. Instead, you build spaces of your own. You surround yourself with mirrors that reflect truth, friendships that nurture, communities that uplift, and relationships that respect. In 2026, the mirror of truth is your graduation. It's the moment when you realize you were never broken. You were simply looking into the wrong mirror. You were never too much. You were just too deep for shallow waters. You were never unworthy. You were just in places that couldn't recognize your worth. Now, as the mirror cracks and falls, you see the landscape behind it, open, wide, and free. It's your life unfiltered. It's your soul unshackled. It's your power undeniable. And from this place, you don't need to shout your worth. You don't need to prove your change. You don't need to convince anyone of your strength. You simply live it. The narcissist illusion dissolves not because they've changed, but because you've awakened. Their manipulation only worked when you doubted your reflection. But now you see clearly. And nothing, no mask, no charm, no false mirror, can take that vision away from you again. This is the mirror of truth, a shattering that feels like freedom, a silence that speaks like thunder, a year when you stop seeing yourself through their eyes and start seeing yourself through God's. In 2026, you don't just survive a narcissist's mirror, you walk past it, leaving only fragments behind. And those fragments can no longer hold you. 2026 is not just another chapter in your life. It is a year the story flips. For too long, chosen ones have been living in survival mode, reacting to games, the manipulation and the silent sabotage of narcissists who thrive on confusion. But this year is different. It is not just about healing. It is about stepping back into your divine authority. This is the year you no longer live at the mercy of someone else's emotional weather. This is the year you stand on ground that has always been yours, but now you're claiming it consciously. The very authority that narcissists try to strip from you is rising again, and this time, you're holding it with clarity, not fear. Authority in this sense isn't about control, revenge, or dominating anyone. It's about alignment. It's about remembering that you were never meant to live as a shadow of yourself, constantly apologizing for your own light. Narcissists operate by pushing you into that shadow. They want you to doubt your instincts, question your worth, and silence your voice. But when you understand your spiritual authority, their tactics stop working. They can no longer pull you into endless cycles of defending yourself, proving your goodness, or explaining your heart. In 2026, you move from reaction to leadership, not leadership over them, but leadership over your own energy, your own narrative, your own destiny. This shift feels subtle at first. It's not fireworks or big dramatic scenes. It's the quiet power of self-possession. It's the moment you no longer send that long message explaining yourself. It's the day you stop replaying old conversations in your head. It's when you decide, without anger, that someone no longer has access to your time or your heart. That's the return of authority. It's spiritual ground you take back with every boundary you set, every prayer you whisper. Every morning you wake up and choose to stand tall in who you are, without shrinking for someone else's comfort. And as you rise into this authority, something happens to the narcissist's hold. Their power depends entirely on your participation. Without your constant validation, their mirror cracks. Without your energy, their throne crumbles. They don't know what to do with someone who no longer reacts. Silence becomes your greatest strategy. Peace becomes your loudest statement. Your focus on your own growth, your own calling, your own alignment becomes a wall they cannot scale. In 2026, you're not just breaking free. You're stepping into a new rhythm, a rhythm where your life is built around purpose, not pain. This return of authority also means you're leading yourself differently. You pray differently. You think differently. You walk into rooms differently. There's a weight to your presence because you're rooted now. You're not chasing closure from people who never intended to give it. You're not trying to convince anyone to see your worth. You already see it. That internal shift is what makes you untouchable. It's not that narcissists will suddenly stop existing. It's that their hooks will no longer find anything to latch onto. Their manipulation becomes obvious. Their games feel small, and their power shrinks to the size of their own insecurity. This is why 2026 feels like a graduation. All the painful lessons of past years weren't punishments. They were training. They were building you into someone who could stand in authority, without arrogance, and in strength without hardness. Your empathy, your discernment, your faith. These are no longer just qualities, they're armor. But unlike the heavy armor of bitterness or revenge, this is light armor. It's flexible. It allows you to move freely, to love deeply, and to protect yourself without shutting yourself off. That balance is your true authority. That balance is what makes you a force the darkness cannot manipulate. The return of authority also brings a new kind of responsibility. As you stand taller, others will look to you for guidance. You become a mirror of hope for those still in the grip of narcissistic cycles. You don't have to preach or prove anything. Your life itself becomes a message. Your calmness under pressure, your refusal to engage in chaos, your quiet confidence. All of it shows what's possible when someone reclaims their spiritual ground. In this way, your personal return of authority becomes a collective light. It helps others see that freedom isn't just a dream, it's a choice. And when enough chosen ones step into this authority, the atmosphere shifts. Manipulation loses its reach. Darkness loses its hold. The culture of fear begins to crack. In 2026, you will notice a change not just in your personal relationships, but in your inner world. The anxiety that once sat heavy on your chest begins to lift. The confusion that clouded your judgment clears. You make decisions faster. You trust yourself more. You rest deeper. This is authority, not as the world defines it, but as heaven designed it. Authority is peace. Authority is clarity. Authority is freedom. And when you live in that state, the narcissist's greatest weapon, confusion, dissolves before it even reaches you. The truth is, your authority was never gone. It was only buried under noise, the manipulation, the doubt. 2026 is the year you dig it out, dust it off, and wear it openly, not as a crown of ego, but as a mantle of purpose. It's not about standing above others. It's about standing fully in yourself. That's the kind of authority no one can take, no matter how many games they play. That's the kind of authority that shifts rooms, heals hearts, and draws blessings. This is your year to lead. Not by chasing, not by fighting, but by standing. Stand in your truth. Stand in your empathy. Stand in your calling. Watch how the atmosphere changes. Watch how manipulation loses its power. Watch how your life begins to feel like your own again. This is a return of authority, not as a promise far off in the distance, but as a reality you are stepping into now. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when the noise fades, the crowd thins, and suddenly, it's just you and silence. You start wondering where everyone went, why people you once trusted became distant, and why connections that once felt strong suddenly feel hollow. It's confusing, even painful. You might think something's wrong, that you've done something to deserve this loneliness. But this is not rejection. It's redirection. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. The isolation season is God's classroom, and in 2026, He's using it to purify, not punish. When God calls you higher, He has to clear the noise. He can't let every voice travel with you into your next level, because some of those voices, even familiar ones, are filled with doubt, jealousy, or hidden motives. Some of them are rooted in comfort, not purpose. And if He doesn't pull you away, their influence would drown out His instructions. That's why isolation often comes right after a spiritual awakening. It's the divine detox. Everything and everyone not meant for your next chapter begins to fade, not out of cruelty, but out of divine necessity. In this quiet season, narcissists often try to reappear. They sense the shift in your energy. They feel your spirit pulling away from their control. They'll test you. A message, a memory, a temptation to prove you've changed. But this time, you see it differently. You no longer see isolation as emptiness. You see it as sacred space. You understand that solitude is not the absence of love. It's the presence of clarity. You no longer need external validation to feel whole. The silence that once scared you now feels like home. This season teaches you to hear God's voice without interference. It's where you start distinguishing between His whisper and your own fears. It's where discernment grows. God doesn't yell over chaos. He speaks through stillness. That's why the narcissist thrives in noise. They keep you distracted, emotionally entangled, and spiritually exhausted. But in isolation, their noise can't reach you. You start remembering who you are without their influence. You start realizing how much of your peace was being drained by the wrong people. And little by little, the fog lifts. There will be days when the loneliness feels heavy, when you miss the comfort of old routines, old friends, old versions of yourself. But understand this. God removes before he restores. He empties before he fills. The people walking away are making room for something purer, stronger, and more aligned with your calling. You can't receive divine relationships while holding on to counterfeit ones. The same way gold must go through fire to be refined, your spirit must go through isolation to be purified. Every silence, every unanswered call, every closed door, it's all part of your refinement. And here's what most people don't realize. Isolation isn't just about separation from others. It's also separation from your old mindset. You begin to notice how much of your identity was tied to other people's opinions. You see how often you settle for crumbs just to feel seen. You recognize how your empathy was used against you. But in the quiet, you start rewriting that story. You stop trying to be everything to everyone. You stop over-explaining. You start walking differently, with intention, with purpose, with peace. You stop chasing acceptance because you've learned that true belonging starts within. By mid-2026, this isolation begins to feel less like exile and more like evolution. You start enjoying your own company. You start talking to God like a friend, not a distant figure. You start feeling gratitude for the lessons that pain brought you. And then, almost suddenly, the right people begin to appear. People who don't drain you, they match your peace. People who don't compete with your light, they celebrate it. You'll know them by their energy, by the way you feel safe in their presence. Not small. That's the beauty of isolation. It sharpens your discernment so you can recognize genuine souls from counterfeit ones instantly. God often hides his chosen ones before he reveals them. Isolation is your cocoon. It's where wings form. While the world thinks you've disappeared, heaven knows you're transforming. Every prayer whispered in tears. Every night spent wondering, why me? Every time you chose faith over frustration. It's all building spiritual strength. You may feel unseen, but you are never forgotten. You're being hidden for protection, not punishment. And when your isolation season ends, you'll emerge with a calm power that no narcissist, no manipulator, no pretender can ever touch again. When that time comes, you won't need to announce your return. Your energy will do it for you. The peace you carry will speak louder than words. People will notice the difference, the unshakable calm, the steady faith, the quiet authority. They won't understand it, but they'll feel it. And that's when you'll realize what isolation was really about. It wasn't about being alone. It was about being aligned. It wasn't about losing people. It was about finding yourself. It wasn't about silence. It was about hearing God clearly for the first time. So, don't rush the process. Don't fight the solitude. Sit with it. Let it work through you. Let it wash away the residue of every false connection and every spiritual distraction. This is your cleansing. This is where your foundation becomes unshakable. The world around you might look still, but within you, something powerful is forming. Resilience, clarity, wisdom. And when God decides you're ready, the doors will open again, not to the same rooms you left, but to new ones designed for your growth. 2026 is not your lonely year. It's your sacred year. The year God separates you from what's fake, so you can step fully into what's real. It's the year you stop mistaking isolation for abandonment and start recognizing it as elevation. Remember this. When God isolates you, he's not taking you away from people. He's taking you closer to purpose. And when he brings you out again, you'll be stronger, clearer, and more powerful than ever before. The isolation season isn't the end of your story. It's the quiet chapter before your rise. There's a moment in every chosen one's story when the tables quietly turn. It doesn't come with fireworks or headlines. It comes with peace. For years, narcissists thrived on your reactions. They fed on the chaos they created. They mocked your pain, whispered behind your back, and built entire stories designed to make you look small. They wanted you broken, confused, doubting your worth. But what they never understood is that pain in the hands of a chosen one becomes seed. Every betrayal you endured, every tear you shed, every night you prayed when no one else was watching, all was planting something powerful inside you. And now, in 2026, that seed is sprouting. This is the year of the great reversal. This reversal is not about revenge. It's not about proving anyone wrong. It's about God proving himself faithful. While they were busy trying to dim your light, he was busy strengthening your roots. While they tried to build chaos around you, he was building calm within you. And that calm, that unshakable peace, is the very thing that defeats the narcissist's power, because they cannot manipulate what they can no longer disturb. They cannot drain what no longer leaks. They cannot control a soul that refuses to play their game. In the great reversal, you stop looking over your shoulder. You stop needing explanations. You stop rehearsing old wounds in your mind. You're too busy living, too busy growing, too busy being free. And while you're rising, something else begins to happen. The very people who mocked your pain start to witness your peace. They see a strength in you that no storm could wash away. They see a calm that makes their chaos look small. They see, perhaps the first time, that everything they try to destroy has become your testimony. And make no mistake, this is a spiritual principle. Narcissists thrive on drama because drama keeps you distracted. It keeps you entangled, explaining yourself, fighting to be understood. But when you choose calm, when you choose peace over reaction, the game ends. Peace is not passive. It's power. It's a shield they can't penetrate. It's a language they can't speak. And in 2026, your calm will say more than your words ever could. This year, you'll find that you no longer need to win arguments. You no longer crave being seen as right. You no longer burn energy trying to make someone understand your heart. Your life itself becomes the evidence. Your stability, your joy, your steady growth. These are your answers. They'll speak louder than any defense you could offer. And while narcissists may still try to provoke you, their attempts will feel smaller, weaker, almost laughable. Their power was never real. It was borrowed from your reaction. Without it, their throne crumbles into dust. The great reversal also reveals the deeper purpose behind your pain. It wasn't random. It was refining. It shaped your discernment. It strengthened your boundaries. It taught you what true love feels like by showing you everything it's not. You're not just surviving narcissistic abuse. You're emerging as someone wiser, steadier, and more aligned than before. The very area where you were attacked is the area where you're now anointed. That's why your testimony will carry weight. That's why your story will bring freedom to others. Because you're not speaking from theory. You're speaking from transformation. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this reversal is that you won't feel the need to gloat. Your peace will be quiet. Your joy will be soft. Your blessings will arrive without fanfare. People will look at you and not understand how you're glowing after all you've been through. That glow is the evidence of God's hand. That glow is your calm turning into victory. That glow is proof that narcissists can't destroy what heaven protects. By the end of 2026, you'll notice how much your inner world has shifted. What once triggered anxiety now triggers gratitude. Where you used to feel fear, you now feel wisdom. Where you used to feel broken, you now feel whole. This is the great reversal. The enemy's weapon becomes your tool. The wound becomes your wisdom. The chaos becomes your calm. The very thing they use to try to silence you becomes a story that sets others free. And here's the quiet truth. Your calm is not just for you. It's contagious. It shifts the atmosphere around you. It teaches others that peace is possible, that freedom is real, that healing is not a myth. Your calm becomes a mirror, reflecting back to narcissists what they cannot have unless they change. It exposes their emptiness without you ever saying a word. That's why peace is their defeat. It forces them to face themselves without the distraction of your reaction. This is the year you see the fruit of your endurance, the year your boundaries hold, the year your discernment saves you time, energy, and heartbreak, the year your empathy becomes wisdom, the year you finally understand that what was meant to destroy you was actually building you, the year your life quietly preaches what your lips don't need to say. I survived. I grew. I'm free. So, step into 2026 with calm authority. Let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them see the glow they didn't think you'd ever have again. Because this is not just your comeback. It's your confirmation. This is the great reversal. Those who mocked your pain will witness your peace. What they tried to destroy has become your testimony. Narcissists thrive on chaos, but your calm is their defeat. There's a shift happening in 2026. A shift so quiet yet so undeniable that even those who once underestimated you will feel it. It's not a surface-level change. It's a deep spiritual movement. This year marks the rise of awakened souls. The chosen ones are no longer just surviving, no longer just hoping for change. They are stepping fully into alignment, wisdom, and divine confidence. This is not hype. This is prophecy unfolding. For years, your life felt like a battleground. You were tested, stretched, refined. Narcissists tried to confuse you, break you, dim your light. But what they didn't know is that every attempt to bury you was pushing your roots deeper. And now, 2026 is the year those roots break the surface. This is your prophetic rise. The prophetic rise isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with noise or ego. It moves like sunrise, gradual, inevitable, unstoppable. You'll feel it before you see it. A new clarity in your decisions. A new steadiness in your emotions. A new authority in your voice. The triggers that used to pull you into spirals now pass by like shadows that can't touch your light. Narcissists lose their grip not because they've changed, but because you have. You no longer feed their hunger. You no longer fear their disapproval. You no longer let your empathy be a leash. That's the quiet power of awakening. It makes manipulation impossible. For so long, chosen ones believed their sensitivity was a weakness. They were told they were too much, too soft, too emotional. But 2026 reveals the truth. Your sensitivity is your discernment, your empathy is your superpower, and your calling is your covering. This is the year where you stop apologizing for the way you're built. Instead, you embrace it as evidence of your divine design. You were never meant to blend in with the noise. You were meant to stand apart, not in arrogance but in authenticity. That's why narcissists targeted you, because your light threatened their shadows. But now, the shadows no longer scare you. Truth no longer fears them. And when truth stops fearing, darkness loses its authority. This rise is prophetic because it was foretold in your own struggles. Every loss, every setback, every sleepless night was pointing to this moment. You're not just getting stronger, you're being positioned. Positioned to lead, to create, to speak, to heal. Positioned to show others that freedom is real, that transformation is possible, that being chosen is not about being perfect, but about being purified. This is why your rise feels different from others. It's not just self-improvement. It's divine alignment. It's heaven's timing meeting your preparation. And as you step into this alignment, you'll notice the atmosphere around you shifting. Opportunities that once passed you by begin to open. Conversations that once drained you now empower you. People who once triggered you now teach you. The very things that used to make you feel small now remind you of how much you've grown. Narcissists will sense it too. They'll try to re-enter your life with the same old tactics: guilt, charm, control. But their words will bounce off you like arrows hitting a shield. Not because you're cold, but because you're clear. Clarity is your protection. Wisdom is your armor. Truth is your sword. This prophetic rise also brings a new kind of confidence. Not the kind that needs to be seen, but the kind that simply is. You'll walk into rooms and shift the energy without saying a word. You'll make decisions without second-guessing yourself. You'll set boundaries without guilt. This confidence isn't arrogance. It's peace. It's knowing who you are, whose you are, and what you will no longer tolerate. It's the kind of confidence that can't be faked because it's been forged in fire. As more chosen ones rise in 2026, the collective atmosphere changes. Manipulation loses its power because too many people can now see it for what it is. Lies unravel faster because truth travels clearer. Narcissists lose their stage because their audience stops clapping. The prophetic rise is not just individual. It's collective. It's an awakening wave sweeping through souls who've been to the fire and come out refined. And as this wave builds, even a culture of silence around narcissistic abuse begins to crack. Stories are told. Healing spreads. Freedom multiplies. This year is also a call into action, but not the action of hustling harder or proving yourself. It's the action of living in alignment, of speaking truth even when your voice shakes, of choosing peace even when chaos calls, of nurturing your spirit as faithfully as you nurture others. The prophetic rise doesn't just happen to you, it happens through you. It's in the daily decisions, the quiet prayers, the moments you choose not to react but to rise. And perhaps the most striking part of this rise is its humility. You're not rising to show off. You're rising to show others what's possible. You're not rising to dominate. You're rising to demonstrate. Your life becomes a living prophecy. Proof that no amount of manipulation, betrayal, or narcissistic control can cancel what heaven has written about you. Your story becomes a key that unlocks doors for others still trapped. Your peace becomes a map for others to find their way out. By the end of 2026, you'll look back and hardly recognize the version of yourself who doubted, who apologized for existing, who thought survival was all there was. You'll see how far you've come, not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer afraid. You're no longer feeding what drains you. You're no longer shrinking for someone else's comfort. This is a prophetic rise. The quiet, steady, unstoppable emergence of your true self, aligned with truth, rooted in wisdom, walking in divine confidence. And as you rise, narcissists lose their grip completely. Not because they've changed, but because they can't hold on to what no longer leans on them. They can't manipulate someone who no longer seeks their approval. They can't confuse someone who's anchored in clarity. Your rise becomes their mirror, not a mirror supply, but a mirror of truth. And truth always wins. 2026 is not just another year on the calendar. It's the year prophecy meets reality. The year awakened souls step into their authority. The year chosen ones stop apologizing for their calling and start walking in it. The year truth stops hiding and starts shining. The year narcissists lose their grip because you no longer feed them. This is a prophetic rise, and you're not just witnessing it. You're part of it.